Hello, everyone. Hopefully, it seemed like a lot of us were jamming out to that starting soon music. So, getting into gear.
All fired up.
Yep. So, welcome one and all to Visual Studio Toolbox Live. This episode, it's going to be super exciting. A couple weeks ago, we talked about what was new in Visual Studio, the regular IDE. But this time, we're going to talk about Visual Studio for Mac and highlight all the cool things that you could be using as a Mac user in the VS IDE space. So joining me as my co-host for this episode is John Galloway. And of course,
Hi.
I'm Leslie Richardson. Hi, John. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It was funny, Syed and I were just on ASP.NET Community Stand-Up, so it's just a morning of live shows.
Yeah, all the people thinking, wait, am I watching the wrong? Like, the same people are here. I don't know what's going on. Cool. So, VS for Mac. I actually, as a Windows user, I am not super familiar with VS for Mac. So can you explain to everyone what VS for Mac is and why we should definitely take a look at its cool features?
Yeah, awesome. So, and I thought, that's definitely a lot of people like are kind of new to it or like, and so we're going to start with a general, like, what the heck is VS Mac? And then we'll kind of go into a little bit more of some of the new recent features. So the idea is that VS Mac is the premier .NET development environment on a Mac. So if you're developing on Windows, of course, Visual Studio is like the thing. And if you're looking for an IDE on VS Mac, that's what we've got for you. And so the idea is it's got, more advanced editor features, things like editor config and refactoring and, project templates. I'll be showing some of those. IntelliSense, like all the kind of like full IDE features. And, a real focus on .NET developers. So, for instance, there's full support for .NET 5 and support for .NET 6 previews. The refactorings with Roslyn's. I help write the release posts when VS Mac has a new release. And we always release the same day as Visual Studio Windows. So VS came out with 16.9 and we came out with 8.9 on the same day. When I write those posts, I always love looking at the Roslyn refactoring section in the Windows post because I can just say, yeah, we've got these too. So they just light up.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yep. And then support for, we have a lot of developers doing web and ASP.NET Core, so like ASP.NET Core, all the things, right? So Razor Pages, web APIs, and now Blazor. So there's support for Blazor, both server and WebAssembly. And then Xamarin, of course, all the good Xamarin stuff. So Xamarin Forms.
Yep. Maddie's here later to talk about the awesomeness of Xamarin.
Yeah, we're so happy that Maddie's available to show off all the Xamarin goodness. So if you're a Xamarin developer on a Mac, of course you're using Visual Studio Mac. And then game development with Unity, and we've just got kind of a high-level overview for that. But a lot of Unity developers aren't aware of, that they're writing scripts in Csharp. But they don't think of themselves as .NET developers or C# developers, and they're debugging in the Unity tools, which are not the best IDE for that. And so we've got a lot of great, debugging and, code fix-up things and stuff. So we'll show you kind of the high level on that, and there's lots of great docs to go deeper on that later.
That's exciting.
Yeah. And then, one thing that we talk to people is like, why would I use Visual Studio Mac? Like, fine, I'm developing on a Mac, but I could use maybe a virtual machine and Visual Studio, like from Windows that I'm used to. Mm-hmm. Or maybe I'll use VS Code and command line or whatever. And so, some of the things that we think of why VS Mac exists is, instead of using a virtual machine, you're really going to get a lot better performance and battery life by running a native application. And then speaking of a native application, it's built using native Mac OS, like it's a native Mac OS app. So it's going to integrate in with the operating system and integrates in with the accessibility and with all the kind of theming and all those sorts of things. It will just kind of light up. It's a full IDE as opposed to, like I use VS Code. A lot of people love VS Code. It's great, but it's really more of like a code editor, and it's not a full development environment. You're not going to get things like project templates, and it doesn't really know what a solution is and all that kind of stuff. And then finally, just kind of optimize for .NET workloads. Like we develop VS Mac on VS Mac, of course, and we're .NET developers and we love .NET, and so we really kind of optimize for that experience.
Yeah.
So
all good stuff.
Yeah. And then, just one other thing on this is that we share all the stuff, right? So like it's all built on .NET. We use, Roslyn, VS Platform, and all that. And then we support the common workloads. So like the ones that we're going to be focusing on today, we've got Xamarin, Unity, and then all the ASP.NET Core and Cloud Dev. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
So I love that we're doing this because I don't know about you, but I get a lot of questions working on the VS IDE for Windows side a lot, asking like, is this feature available for VS for Mac? And sometimes I don't have a genuine answer because I don't know all the time. So like, it's nice that we're all getting in the know on this. And to the audience, if you have any questions as we go along about VS for Mac and any of its features, don't hesitate to ask them. We will, the team is here to answer your questions.
Cool.
One person saying they use VS for Mac and are happy with it now. So yay.
Hey, awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm not going to be doing much more talking after this. I'm going to show a real quick, just again, like finishing up my what the heck is VS Mac, and then we'll turn it over to the experts and they'll dig deeper into some of the features.
Sounds good.
So here we are. This is a new MacBook M1. So people ask about M1 support, and that's something that we have support for in the latest release using Rosetta. So Rosetta is the translation layer. So I'm loving this machine. It's really cool. So here, Jordan's got some cool refactoring things he's going to be showing later on this. But we've got all the kind of cool, the stuff you're used to. So like refactorings and all that sort of stuff is great. I've also got support for, like, for instance, I'm showing using demo-friendly settings here, but I usually go in and I have my own custom, like I'll set up custom UI. You can set up different themes and fonts and, kind of really make it your own. So here, you can go in and load in any other themes. One feature that I love recently is support for integrated terminal. So, you're doing a lot of tasks, especially as a web dev. And so, here I've got my whole terminal, and it really integrates in well with my Mac OS terminal. So for instance, it's got all my history, right? So I just recently started this up, and here I can page back through my history and see all the crazy things I've been doing. So that is neat. And you can open multiple different terminal windows up and all the things you'd expect. We have
I was going to say, I remember you surprised us playing around with that, John, because this is the ZSH shell, and you played with an add-in right away with your first experiment, and the thing worked where it customized the layout, showed the Git branch and stuff. Was kind of cool.
Yep, exactly. It's got support for version control, so that's actually kind of integrated right in. A lot of people don't know that this is just built right into the experience. I'm trying to think if there's anything else big that I wanted to show off. I will, of course, be digging in more to a lot of the things. And then, of course, the new solution thing is great because I guess we'll save that. And Syed will show more of this. But this is really, as a .NET developer, you're going to be creating projects that have complicated solutions and things. And that's something that's really kind of helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is great.
So I think we're ready to. One other thing is, so we just had 8.9 ship, and I've got kind of a bullet point list, and then we'll dig more deeply into these. But and also this is in case I forgot to mention any that they would be here. So we've got .NET 6. We've got Unity test runner support. So this is being able to run your Unity tests directly in VS Mac. Some cool new stuff with Git source control. I think Jordan will talk some about that.
Sweet.
Solution filters are really good for being able to open a huge solution and just load just specific projects.
Yep.
updated XML editor, some quick actions and refactorings. And then one other thing that's just kind of behind the scenes we've been doing is harmonizing with Visual Studio on Windows. And so developers that are used to VS Windows will come over to VS Mac, and we had some things that were just slightly named differently or were in different menus. And so over time, we've been continue to just kind of match up with what people expect when they're coming over from VS Windows.
Yeah, that's great.
If I could elaborate on that one for a second real quick, John, because that's one of my favorite topics right now. And somebody did just ask a question about adding new features and seeing it like Windows. So that one about harmonizing there. When we say harmonizing, the idea is actually seeing how we can take some of the best of VS for Mac and the best of Windows and bring them together and help each other across the product. So we've been doing a lot of the other direction. That'll be a theme with VS for Mac for a while, like bringing in editor themes, changing our terminology to have tool windows that match Visual Studio, are all examples of things we've done so that you could leverage online documentation for VS, possibly make it just easier for you to, if you're familiar with Visual Studio, being able to apply those skills over to Visual Studio for Mac. So it's an area that we'll keep working on. You'll see some. I'll mention our new Git tooling would be a good example in a little bit here.
Yeah, that's
just a big area of focus as a theme of ours right now.
I really appreciate that too, because my work computer is on Windows, but I actually have a MacBook as my personal laptop. So like just being able to swap back and forth as seamlessly as possible between the two Visual Studios would be like the ideal that I'd love to see going forward as we continue to harmonize.
That's actually a pretty common scenario. We talk to customers, we have some things where customers can just schedule a thing to talk with the team. And we regularly talk to people that are like, hey, my work is all on Windows, but my personal machine's a MacBook, and I love .NET development in my free time. And that kind of thing. And so that's very common. So
sweet. That said, we have other people in the chat who are excited to see these improvements. One user took their first class in Csharp last year and uses a Mac. It was a bit frustrating at the time, so they're excited to see the improvements.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we are up to Syed. So I'm going to be quiet and we'll let Syed, and let me share Syed's screen. And thanks about my last thing I'll say is Syed is such a good sport, because we had another demo we weren't able to do, and we wrote Syed in at the last minute and he jumped right in. So thank you.
Not a problem, John. Go ahead, Liz.
Oh, sorry. I have one more question before we go into the project template. So Mr. Dimension asked, does it support Swift and iOS development so I don't need Xcode anymore? So one of those other Mac IDEs that a lot of people find themselves using.
Yeah, so that so if you want to do Swift and iOS development, or actually go to Swift development, then that will be Xcode. We focus right now on the managed .NET language tooling. So you could do iOS development with Xamarin and start building out native iOS applications using the tools. But we haven't gotten into the space of other languages like Swift right now.
All right, cool. All right, Syed, you want to take it away?
Yeah, okay, great. Definitely, thanks for having me here. And, I always love talking about templates, so last minute or not, if you got anything going on, definitely reach out and I can do a template demo here. So the first thing we want to talk about is, how do you discover templates, right? Because what I'm going to show you is, how we can find templates and then use those both at the command line and also Visual Studio for Mac, right? So the first option you have to find templates is on, NuGet.org itself. So you can go to search NuGet.org. And I'll just do a template that I know is out there. It's called .NET Boxed. But after you do your search, you can use the filter here to find, what is it that you're actually looking for here? Am I looking for an assembly, a .NET tool, or a template here? So I will select template here. Go ahead and click apply. And then if I was to drill into this one, it will then show me, what is the command that I need to execute in order for this template to get installed on my machine, right? And I see that .NET new command here, and I can, easily copy that and paste it into my terminal. What I've done ahead of time is, I have another kind of template that I've created, and it's available on NuGet.org as well for testing. And here's the command, and I've actually already went ahead and executed that command, and And the idea here is, we've got .NET New, and, you can create projects with .NET New. And then we've got the IDEs as well. We got Visual Studio and Visual Studio for Mac. And the templates themselves are actually shared, so the same exact template is shared, not only with .NET New, but also with these two IDEs. And then the challenge that we had was, how can we light up that same type of experience for community or third-party templates, right? So the experience that we have today is you go and install your template with .NET New, and then that will make it available both on the command line and in the IDE that you're working for. So I've already got this installed. So let's go ahead and flip back over to Visual Studio for Mac here. Go ahead and click on the New button. All right, so now if I was to go so in this particular template pack, I've got, a web app, and we can see that I've got my web app down here for Syed Web, and there's also a command line tool as well that I can see down in the other category here. So this is just a kind of a vanilla console project here. Let's go ahead and flip back to the web app here. Let me go ahead and pick a Syed Web. So now I can go ahead and click next. Let's see what's going on here. One second. Okay, didn't click it good enough. Okay, so my demo web, and this is just the standard input for project name and location and that sort of stuff. So I just give it a name and just take the default location. Go ahead and click create here. So at this point, in this particular build, it didn't prompt me for the parameters, but in the next, I believe in the next release of Visual Studio for Mac, we should see it also prompting for those parameters that this template carries. Okay, so let me just go ahead and run this, I guess. Yeah, so let's go ahead and do an F5 on this. Oh, yeah, I got to restore. So in my version of Visual Studio for Mac, I've turned off, restore packages automatically. So odds are you probably won't run into that one. All right, let's go to an F5 that one. And then the web app should come up. And then, this is just a kind of a very kind of basic web app template here. Let's see, did that open up somewhere? Probably. Where is it? Maybe not. Okay. Oh, okay, got it. Okay, now it's popping up over here. All right, so we can see the web app is starting now and connecting over to the local host, and here's where one of those parameters would have been inserted, but like I said, that'll come in the next version there. Let's go ahead and close out of this. Let me go back to Visual Studio for Mac, and we'll take a look at it real quick one more time. Let me go to the other here. So yeah, with the a couple things to kind of notice here is you'll get first class support here and your third party template here. So, I've got my little custom icon and also the ability to kind of name everything as well. And if you wanted, slightly different strings on the command line versus in the IDE, that's possible as well. And John, I shared a link in the private chat for template authors. So anybody who's interested in creating your own template, you should go to aka.ms/netcore-template. Or maybe dash templates. I forget which one it was, but they'll paste it into the chat here shortly.
Yeah, I will.
Let's go ahead and okay, let's go ahead and click next on this one.
We both got it.
Yep.
Okay, great. And then for this one, we can see I am getting prompted for the parameters here. Let me go ahead and fill in. We'll say demo author dash demo. Go ahead and click next on that one. Let's see if I can type 01. Let's go ahead and create that. We can see the console project was created. If I was to go into the program.cs, I should see those updates. So I can see I've got my demo author here misspelled and also description demo here. So the parameters were appropriately processed there. And another feature that we're working on that I don't have working on this particular machine is the ability for solution templates. And I believe the hope is to get that out into the next preview. So if you had a template, let's say it had 5 projects in it, and you had some solution folders, and maybe you had some custom build configurations in your solution file, that type of support will be coming very soon to Visual Studio for Mac and also Visual Studio as well. So this is a case where, we're kind of shipping features, basically at the exact same time in Visual Studio and Visual Studio for Mac. Some things that we're planning on doing to kind of improve this is, today you have to go to the terminal to install templates with .NET New. In the future, we hope to have a kind of a search and install experience right in the IDE, but we haven't really started up that work. We still got some other work to do before that. I think that's it. Was there any questions that came through while I was talking there, John or Leslie?
Yes, you did get a couple questions. So Jasim asks, will you be able to create NuGet packages which contains XAML content page and content views, not just code behind?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. So yeah, the template engine. Oh, so let me kind of explain how this works for template authors, right? So you've got the template engine, which is at the kind of lowest level there, right? And then sitting on top of that, you've got .NET New, and then you've got Visual Studio, right? And then templates, they go into a NuGet package that goes onto either NuGet.org or any NuGet repository that you've got, and then you process those with .NET New. So now from a template engine perspective, there's no restrictions with respect to language or files or, file extensions, this, that, and the other thing. Whatever kind of project you have, whatever kind of assets you have, whether it's a XAML file or whatever kind of files you got, the template engine is able to process those. And, we have a bunch of existing templates with XAML content as well. So I guess one thing that I forgot to mention was, all the .NET Core and .NET 5 templates are created with the template engine. So that includes .NET Core, ASP.NET Core, and the mobile project templates as well. So yeah, absolutely. Whatever kind of content you have there, it should support that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And kind of a similar question, Gert Jan Brouwers. Excuse me if I mess up usernames. Mm-hmm. Could you guys explain a bit about MVVM versus code behind?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think maybe that's a question for
that
another
could be for anybody,
here, or for the mobile sort of stuff, I think.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah,
sweet.
That is pretty much all I have.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. It's nice. I know we did a whole series on project templates a couple months ago on the recorded Visual Studio Toolbox stuff, and it's cool to see similar ways of creating project templates, both in the main IDE and VS for Mac. So
yeah, that's right. And I will be on the what's that show with Cecil? Is it on.net, John or Leslie on.net? So I'll be on the on.net show on Thursday. Talking about, how to do templates, and I'm going to be showing some new stuff there, like the solution templates and that sort of stuff. So any template authors that are out there, definitely do take a look at the on.net show on this Thursday. We're going to have a lot of beautiful content in that show.
Awesome. Syed, you're just on the talk show circuit right now.
I'm everywhere,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Friday we'll be talking on the 425 show as well.
Wow.
You need an agent, or maybe you don't need an agent. I guess you're doing just fine.
Just for the record, folks, he also swept in at the last minute for this particular chat too. So we managed to get him.
Yep.
His rider was quite expensive, but we did it.
Well, next up, we've got Jordan, and he's going to be showing refactoring and Git tooling. And Jordan, I don't see your screen yet. I don't know if you've got it shared.
Oh yeah, I was gonna intro real quick and then switch over to the screen share.
Before that, does anyone have a link to the on.net show? I might be able to put it in the chat.
So what I recommend is just go to live.net. So I can put that in the chat, but that's where you'll find all our live shows. .net. That's where this current show is listed, and down the right side of the screen, it lists all our live shows. So it's the best way to find out what's coming up next.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
All right. What do you got, Jordan?
Yeah, so real quick intro. I'm Jordan Matthiesen. I'm the lead program manager over on Visual Studio for Mac right now as far as the IDE platform goes. So that's all the stuff we've got going across the look and feel of the IDE, features like our core editor, debugging experiences, all those things. And yeah, I was going to dive in a little bit on some of the new stuff that's been going on around the refactorings, and then touch on our Git tooling and where that's going. So I can switch over to my window here. So yeah, what I was doing and looking at this demo, John pointed out that memory game sample project, and this is a Blazor WebAssembly application. So it's an example of one of those scenarios we mentioned supporting in the IDE. So I could run this, and I was checking it out and noticed that it had some issues in the memory game as far as like the traditional memory game. You'll see the cards with no pictures, and you tap them and they flip over, and you try to remember where cards are and match them up. And this was a fresh instance I got here, so we'll see if it'll run right now as it's building for the first time. But as I decided to start in there and play around with it, I cloned it down locally and was going to start browsing through the source code here. And you'll see here now it'll open up, and you'll see these cards they just show you the picture, so it's really easy to win right now.
Yeah, wow.
I love it.
That might be the easiest game of memory I've ever seen.
So I was
how to
looking
move the mouse, I guess.
Yeah, the trickiest part, or get it on a touch screen.
Yeah.
And, then it's super simple. But I was starting with, so there was an example. We've launched the app and it's running, and I've got full local debugging for Blazor WebAssembly here. And I like, whenever I start on looking at a new source code, I like to first get the lay of the land, what's going on. I've been browsing through some things, and started here in the memory game model. So this is the model behind, a lot of the logic in the game. And this ends up being a really nice example of some stuff we've got going on with our refactorings, quick fixes. John mentioned earlier Roslyn, which Roslyn will power the code analysis behind the scenes and understanding of your C# code. And so we're able to take advantage of that by using the same Roslyn as Visual Studio and the same core editor in Visual Studio for Mac as on Visual Studio, and get some of these smarts from Roslyn for free. So these analyzers, for example, I can look in the list here and I see these lines on my screen that are appearing and that'll show us there's like a light gray line here and a green line. And these show me different places that have some recommendations for changes I might want to apply to my source code. So I could come and hover over this and click on the light bulb to get some recommendations. And what you're seeing is an early preview here right now of our new quick fixes, or a light bulb dialog. So it's a little rough around the edges on some of the UI. We're working to clean this up, but it gives you an idea of being able to quickly go through. If you had a number of refactorings, I could quickly filter the list down. I could come in and this will bring back some functionality we had to take out for a little while around fixing all occurrences across more than your document, across the project or the solution. So I'd be able to come back through and say, if I just want to apply this pattern everywhere, I could say apply it to the project level if I wanted to. So in this particular example, this is showing us that there's some ways that I could simplify using maybe even the latest language features in some cases, my source code. So I could apply that change across the document, and now I've seen it applied in a few places, and those two lines have now disappeared. And scrolling through, and I noticed in a few places some underlines going on, what we call squiggles, the technical term. And these are highlighting things that you might really want to pay attention to improve your source code, and sometimes to make it easier to follow and read. So I don't know about you, but like this line here, I can parse it out to figure out that if it's the opposite of this, then do that, otherwise do this. But it seems like it could be simplified, which is what the IDE was telling me, saying this conditional expression can be simplified. If I tap it here, you'll see that this is I think one of the newer analyzers, correct me if I'm wrong there, John, that has some more smarts around all sorts of different things in how you use conditionals. So this can trim it down to simply if this or that.
That's great.
Which is a lot cleaner to look at.
Yeah, I agree. Especially if you're new and you don't know the question mark notation for conditional statements. Me personally, I always have to think about it for an extra 2 minutes.
Oh yeah, especially anything with the logic like that. The one I found recently that I really liked. This goes back to this has been an issue that could catch people in .NET for a while. So if you catch an exception, and it could be tempting to do some stuff with it, and then you just want to rethrow that exception. This is actually a bad practice because, well, actually now the tooling will tell me it's rethrowing an exception you caught will actually lose your stack information. So you're going to create a problem for yourself later on down the line, because it will now say the error came from this line of code, literally, and you'll have no real easy way to see the history. And so they added this as an example of a .NET analyzer recently. So now it will show you how to rethrow and preserve that stack detail. And I love these kinds of analyzers because they help with those simple things you may not catch. And that's the kind of thing in a code review for a while. Like if you haven't seen it, you scratch your head, go through.
Right. And that's just like a nice, quicker way of learning those good coding practices as you develop more and more.
Let's see another one here. That was really nice. That oh yeah, we got other places. So lots of stuff around conditionals recently to clean these up. So if player equals true, that's redundant. So you can simplify that line. Oops.
And this is a built-in analyzer?
There it is. Yeah, these are all built in. So they're just default from .NET Framework and with Roslyn itself.
Good stuff.
And then one more, and John actually clued me into this recently that I had either forgotten this or hadn't seen it before. Whoops.
Yeah.
Was so say you're working with date times. There are these strings like MM, and there are shorthand formats with strings to be able to control the output for date times when you convert it to a string. And so now this was also added in Visual Studio. You can come in and there's our IntelliSense suggestions on how to use these formats. And this is something I've been doing .NET Dev for the longest time, and I'd always have to have that documentation page open.
Oh, I hate date time so much because I never remember the form. Oh,
it's really handy.
Yeah.
So let's say I want to use that format. And it's always risky to try it out live, so I won't go there just yet. But actually, no, I will. So regex, there's a similar thing. Let's see if I can remember. Ooh.
So what I do there is
there's a way to do it right down.
Bracket. An open square bracket.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's an example.
Okay.
With regex, that's really handy.
Yes. Regex, I can't. I just lots of Stack Overflow anytime I brave using regex. So
yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep. a few points are real nice additions. Let's see. And then I noticed there's like one more line left. Let's see if I missed something here. And of course, this is something you want to do in any open source project, is go in and immediately just start applying the fixes from the tooling recommends. So in a moment, we'll go ahead and just commit this too. So one more here on indexers was added in C# 8. So it can simplify down this line here. You can see, for example. And this actually is another example of helping me learn new language features that are available. So
yeah, it's ranges.
I honestly haven't looked at that one, so I'd have to,
Cool. Actually, I have to do a video on that later.
Oh, nice.
That's the only reason why I recognize it. That's cool.
Yeah, those are. There was another really fun example that's in this one too, of switch statements added recently as well. So this was another code file I was exploring and noticed some lines here about using switch expressions. So if you look at this line now, I can go, instead of having a switch statement that then will return based on actions, instead it can change to, let's just apply it, a simpler switch expression that now will just return something different based on the switch, and it shrinks down your code, makes it a little more legible.
Yeah, a lot cleaner. That's cool. So is this analyzer, does an equivalent exist in the Windows VS IDE? Because I feel like
they're all the same. That's the cool thing. It's all based on the Roslyn thing. So they ship the same day, right? When it comes out on 16.9, it's lit up on 8.9 as well. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So
cool. We'll end this one with, oh, sorry, go ahead, Leslie.
Oh, no, go for it.
Okay. I was going to say,
save the questions for the end of your presentation.
Cool. I'll just hit this one piece real quick. This is a sneak peek at an actual internal build. But like I said, it's always fun to go just apply changes randomly and submit it to the open source project. So the last thing I would do is go in, and this is our new, I think John mentioned, no, you showed John a little bit of the Git tooling in the product today. So you can go in and use our Git review and commit functionality in the product, commit your changes. This one here is an example of the new UI that ties to that theme we mentioned of harmonizing with VS. So we're bringing over some of the experiences from Visual Studio. And this is the new Git experience from Visual Studio, tailored a little bit for Mac OS kind of standards and practices. So here I could come and take my two changed files, stage them, and then add a commit message and submit it. But it actually is really a bad practice to just go without even running the app and then randomly submitting it to an open source repo. So I'm not going to go there yet.
Already talking to it'll work. It'll be perfect.
It'll be fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, there's just a quick run through some stuff in VS for Mac.
That's awesome. I love seeing refactorings and IntelliCode suggestions and things like that and analyzers.
And there's a ton more. We got to give everyone time, and we definitely don't want to miss out on our Maddy time. So let's move on and let's check out what's new with the Xamarin stuff.
So I do have a couple questions in a chat real quick though before we get to Maddy's cool stuff. Sweet. All right. So Malachi asks, any idea when will an auto formatter for code be integrated into the IDE? Something like Prettier for JS or TypeScript.
That's an interesting question. Yeah, we have more of on the C# side, there's built-in functionality around formatters. Mm-hmm. Haven't looked too much at JavaScript, TypeScript lately while I've been focused on C#, so I don't have any update there. Mm-hmm. You could use those through, it would be possible to run them with some other external tools and apply it into your tool chain, like as part of a build step maybe, or some other steps you run, but they'd be manually kicked off right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and specifically for C#, there are, like as Jordan showed, but there are some auto formatters. There's some quick fixes that will clean up like alignment and stuff. So
awesome. And also just shout out to the light mode users out there. Seems I'm the only one using VS for Mac and light mode. You got a friend in John Galloway. He was I saw you using light mode.
I actually, when I'm coding on my own, I'm in dark mode. But when I'm presenting, I've been told people can usually read a little better with light mode. So I try to.
Same. Personally, I use dark mode, but a lot of the time for demos and things, I'm forced to use light mode. So.
Yep. Yep. All right. Are we ready for Maddy?
We are ready for Maddy.
All right.
Yep. Maddy's going to talk about some Xamarin awesomeness.
Sweet. I'm very excited. Okay. So my screen is up. I'm going to unplug my MacBook and rotate it this way so that I can speak into my mic. Sweet. But I did just charge it. We're at 100%. So that's very exciting.
Hashtag home recording office problems.
Yeah, I know. I was like messaging James Montmagno earlier. I was like, if I share it from like a different thing than I joined StreamYard from, is that going to break everything? And he was like, no. And I was like, I don't know how this works, but oh well. Cool. Magic. So yeah, so I mean, Xamarin/.NET MAUI has a bunch of stuff going on. And if you're unfamiliar with it, Xamarin and Xamarin Forms are Microsoft's open source cross-platform framework for building mobile applications with .NET. So you can kind of write once, run anywhere for a lot of things. And it's super popular. It's been around. It's like 10 years old now, which is crazy. But yeah, we are kind of in this evolution phase where we're rebranding sort of and bringing ourselves formally into the .NET umbrella. And we're calling ourselves .NET MAUI for the cross-platform part, for the cross-platform UI part. So .NET multi-platform app UI, multi-app platform UI, multi-platform app.
There you go.
I always get confused because there's no P in MAUI, and I'm like, where's the platform go? It's fine. So I'm a PM on the team. Silent. You can tell. I know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, I am here to not talk today about MAUI. There's so much content about that on the internet, so go check all that out. And there's, of course, more information to come. But to show you kind of what you get right now as a Xamarin and future .NET MAUI developer in Visual Studio for Mac, particularly when you're using XAML to create your UIs. So I have a Xamarin Forms app here. It's my like kind of thrown together app about taking care of my plants because I always kill them. It's very complicated, and by complicated I mean not complicated at all. I literally use the same image for all my plants, so that's fine. But it's written in XAML. It's using Xamarin Forms for my UI. So if I pull up my Solution Explorer, that's teeny. And then I zoom in a little bit. You can see go to the side. My views here are it's just 2 XAML pages. And it's also a shell app. So if you have heard of Xamarin Forms shell, that is kind of like our app navigation and layout layer. So that's actually what's controlling these tabs down here and the color of this bar up here. And also like if I click between these, that's what's doing the navigation and all that. So Xamarin Forms shell app, the shell is defined in XAML. Then my pages are written in XAML. So pretty easy. And the first thing / the coolest thing that I'm going to show you, really letting it all out right at the beginning here, is XAML Hot Reload. So we launched XAML Hot Reload a year and a half ago. Time is irrelevant, but like sometime in 2019 later. And we've actually just finished a complete overhaul of the architecture where we brought the bits that run the XAML Hot Reload on UWP and WPF on Visual Studio for Windows. We brought all those bits, abstracted them out from the Windows operating system and brought them to Mac too. So you get super, super fast hot reloads. Like I can start typing here. I have my auto completion IntelliSense in my XAML here with my resources. So that's a resource I defined in my app XAML. But I just hit enter. I didn't even hit save. It just refreshes the page. It's super fast. I can undo that, go back to my light green. I can change anything in this file. I can go into my shell and change like the name of my tabs down here. So it's kind of small because I'm not an app designer, but I can say your plants in all caps and you can see it just immediately pops up. And the coolest part about this is that this XAML Hot Reload happens like instantaneously. So, I almost just dropped my Mac on the floor. We're good. So if I type plant and then like slowly start adding S's, you can see down here, it's just going to keep adding S's, which I love because I spell things wrong and then I hit save and then I'm like, this is terrible. But yeah, it's all just like happening just instantly. And this app I built specifically to showcase the Xamarin Forms 5.0 features. So it's got the carousel view, which is like the slidey cards, and it's got custom drawn shapes. And these icons down here for the tabs are actually just font images. Like I pulled in a font and I said, use this glyph basically for font awesome. Oh my goodness. Okay, we're there. It's like 3 p.m. in Boston, which means it's time for my nap. We're having a hard time.
I feel that it's noon and it's time for like the lunch coma. So I get it.
Yeah, well, I eat at noon, and then by like 3, I'm like, oh man, I really need to sleep now. So we're good. But something else that you get with this new hot reload is this live visual tree, which is something I was like, that's cool. And I use it all the time now. I did not think it was going to be like as my development as it has been.
I think you showed this at the What's New for VS video, and it was awesome.
Yeah,
so it's cool that it's here too.
Me too. So it was one of those things that this is like totally a behind the scenes thing. So hopefully you folks find this interesting. It was one of those things that existed on Windows, and the team that built that on Windows for UWP and WPF XAML Hot Reload was like, yeah, it's really cool, but like we don't have Macs, like we don't develop on those. So like if you guys can figure out how to like do it over there, sure, sounds great. Because the development team literally does not have Macs, and like by the time they got Macs and stuff, like weeks would have gone by. So we were like, well, I guess we'll just like try and hook it up and bring it over. So the Xamarin team was able to just take the way that it was built on Windows and kind of share that code and do a little bit of re-implementation for the actual UI stack. But now it runs on Mac, and it's amazing, and it does all the things you need it to do. So I just hit that expand, the plus sign here. I know my mouse shows up double when I zoom in. I don't know why StreamYard is doing that. I'm really sorry. I blame StreamYard. It's definitely not my fault. But I can expand everything, and then I can collapse it all.
Blame the tech.
Yep. But I can see exactly what my app is made out of when it comes to like the building blocks that is a UI. So it's a shell app, and I've got 2 tabs. And in this tab, I've got a stack layout with a frame. And in that frame, I have a label. So like, where is that defined in my code? I don't know. I'll just click on the little things there, and it'll pop me to it. Yeah.
That's so great.
It's so helpful. It's so good because I get so lost all the time. And then, I can expand this carousel view and see like, oh, there's 3 elements in my carousel view. And each of them are just a stack layout with a frame. And that frame is a grid. You can see I'm really great at UI design. I made a label and an image, and then an absolute layout for the image. And or for the little icons, I think is the absolute layout. So I can go in and I can be like, where did I set the image? Oh, right here in my grid, in my stack layout. And then of course, this is like a giant XAML file. So if I zoom this out, and then I can't, how do I hide this? I'm going to shrink you. Shrink. And then I like zoom out of this using my hotkeys that I totally know. Yeah. Like this is a huge XAML file. It's 100 lines. So I guess it's not that big. But when I'm kind of like, I really need to figure out what I did wrong with like the word water. And I can just be like, oh, that's this label right here. Boop. There. Pops right up. Yep. So that has been like one of my favorite things that we've come out with this new XAML hot reload thing. And I'm a huge fan of it. But yeah, I mean, we have a bunch of great tooling for XAML. The XAML editor was rebuilt from the ground up. I think, Jordan, correct me if I'm wrong, but like I think over a year ago now, or just under a year ago. It was either last summer or 2 summers ago.
Yeah, it sounds right. About a year and a half, probably, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, cool. But it gets you these like great color previews. So I can like, if I have these are resources defined in like a different file. And sometimes I name my resources things like nice purple and bad purple. And then I'm like, which one's the nice purple? And it just shows me right in line here in the XAML editor. And like I showed you, you get like IntelliSense and completion for your static resources and the syntax highlighting, and it's super snappy and it's built natively and it's got emoji support and right to left support and all the things you could possibly want. So
it's like, I love designing and I love drawing out like what my web app is going to look like. But when it comes to the HTML, it's the worst, just trying to like diagnose your issues and go through it. So having a tree like this is so nifty.
We should team up because when it comes to me, like designing an app is the worst thing in the world. But I can like sit here and type away at XAML all day and be like, put a little grid inside of this grid, and then this just goes in here, and then I'll just make it a little bit bigger.
I remember being in school, like, I'll design this part of the project, but you can do the HTML part because I don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm sure there will be a question at some point, whether or not it's in the chat already, about like, what about my C# code? So yes, we're working on what we call .NET Hot Reload, which is kind of across the .NET stack. So not just XAML, but C#, VB is something that we're looking at, and not just Xamarin or .NET MAUI, but also web and desktop and all the things. So yeah, keep your eye out for more info on that. But for now, XAML Hot Reload is the coolest. And it's going to stay the coolest. And I refuse to let that title go. So,
yeah, Hot Reload is pretty hot.
Yeah, I agree. Fire emojis all around.
I know. We should have it for everything.
Fire over here.
Yeah, I mean, yep. I know. Science providing the fire. So
very aesthetic. I like it.
So great. Cool. So thanks for sharing that, Maddie. That is also some really cool stuff. And again, she showed a lot of that same stuff in the VS IDE that you can use as of 16.9. So just goes to show the harmonization between VS for Mac and VS IDE for Windows that's going on as we speak.
Yep. Exactly. It's a huge part of like the Xamarin development story and stuff, as well as the VS story. So just before I forget, I should mention where to turn this on if it's not already. You have to be on Xamarin Forms 5 to use the new version. You have to be on like 4.1 to use the old version, but use 5 because it's great. And then you just make sure it's enabled and then hit changes only mode, and you're ready to roll. So thank you for having me. Very fun.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. So as we wrap up a little bit, do we want to give a quick note to Unity? I know, John, you mentioned it earlier on.
I would love to show Unity. So I'll make it quick. But it's awesome, and a lot of people don't know about it. So all I've done on this machine is I've got Unity installed and I've got VS Mac installed. And then I went into preferences, and you just in this drop down you can say select the external editor, and I said VS Mac. And now when I double click on something, it's going to automatically load it up. And all that cool refactoring stuff that you saw Jordan show, it's automatically going to have that here. So I've got all my debugging, my refactoring, and all my VS goodness. So I moved from, like working in kind of a text editor, basically, to something that's giving me really good refactoring support. And it actually has a lot of code fixes inside of that are Unity specific. So some of those things, we've got... So there's a Project Explorer. There's the whole kind of attach and play support for Unity tests. And so that specifically, that Unity test, this is integrated into VS Mac, and it's got all your, so it's an integrated test runner experience. So as you'd expect, like the testing that you've got for other C# projects, you've also got like full support there. And then there's also in debugging, you can go in and you can expand out your active scene, and you can get access to all your game objects. So again, like a lot of time in debugging, and Unity assets can be difficult to kind of understand everything that's going on. It's all built in. So if you're a Unity developer and you're not using VS Mac, like you're working way too hard. And that's my 2-minute sales pitch.
Awesome. I just think I did one Unity project in school on my Mac, and it was a real pain in the butt. So having something like that where you can just easily inspect your assets, especially, seems like a great thing to have.
All right, now it's back to Jordan. So what do we got?
So, what's next?
Yeah, and there have been a few questions that came up too that I can touch on here that dive into this space. Actually, John, if you go back on the deck too, there's a slide there we can just put up as far as like a roadmap preview of things. But the big stuff we've got going on, you're actually seeing a pause in our team with like this 8.10 release that's up next. We're doing a lot of work. 3 big things over the past year have been about performance and reliability of the IDE. So it's not addressing crashes. We've got a lot of work we've done on our infrastructure to help us identify crashes and try and get ahead of those, improving the performance of the IDE. And then the 3 big ones: performance, reliability, that native macOS UI. We talked on this earlier, I think. One of our big goals is moving the whole IDE to be native macOS UI. So that will get rid of some fun classics like weird redraw artifacts when you resize the window and text jumping around in strange ways. Stuff that, while it's fun to see those, they're really annoying when you're used to the fluid movement of your UI on the Mac. And it stems from a legacy UI framework we were using. So we are heavily focused on that move to native UI in the team right now. And then also keeping support for the latest platform. So .NET 6, the preview releases coming out are the big themes that we're working on. But if you look at the kind of the short list of future items here, somebody did ask about M1 processors and native support. That's one we're exploring now. If you're not familiar, M1 is Apple's new Apple Silicon processor. These are ARM-based processors that the Mac OS platform is making this transition to that processor architecture. So the IDE works through translation. John mentioned that earlier, of a layer called Rosetta. A lot of the big issues we know about are fixed now. So you're able to work with the IDE. You saw John using an M1. We're working on native support now so that we would get rid of the extra translation that goes on behind the scenes so that it's just running fully native on ARM. There was another question about auto switching your layout, your theme. So on Mac OS, it can switch to light or dark mode depending on the time of the day. I use it myself. That's something we can't do today, but that's a small example of something with the move to native UI that we'll also just get. And our dark theme will become darker, more like the Apple defaults. And the light theme is actually going to stay pretty similar because it was already really close to the light theme look of OS. And then there's just a general list of stuff that really the big theme gets into making it feel more like Visual Studio. So updating terminology, looking to bring in code lens, which is the hint you see above methods in Visual Studio where you can navigate, see how many references there are to that method in your code. That once that came in I remember that feature first coming in VS and I loved it. I've been wanting it on VS for Mac for a while.
Lifesaver.
That and preview tabs is a nice way to quickly look through source codes. Another one kind of high on the list at the moment from talking with customers. So you can add your vote. I've got a link there that's going to take you toward our developer community site where you can actually add your vote to items that are out there, create new ones. And that's a good one of the many spots we look at to get ideas of what we could do to help everybody.
Awesome.
And I shared that link out in the chat. So definitely.
Yay.
Thanks, John. Cool. So I got a couple of questions from chat about the next features and things. So Jasim asks, when will version 8.10 be available?
Yeah, this one's in preview right now, and 8.10 will be. We usually do those about once every 2 or 3 months. So the last look was we were seeing around probably around May time frame is what we're looking at to get that toward releasing to the like a stable channel, as we call it.
Great. 80K asks, will VS for Mac support live share?
Not yet. There's not. That's not bumping as high on the list. You can add your votes to it over on the live share team has a GitHub repo too. That's one of those that is takes a lot of integration points across the IDE. So we've had to do stuff like that, move of our UI to native and different things first before we even start looking down that route. But no plans right now that I can speak to with that.
Is that one of the things on the survey, if they want to vote that up?
Yeah. I think, we have a survey too. That might be the link I have there was actually the survey for adding your vote to kind of help stack rank some of the items and give us your thoughts of how you would relatively place this versus that.
Awesome. Go vote, y'all. Yeah. Other questions? We've got one from Raphael who asks, can native support M1 be ported to iOS?
If by that you mean, could we take, say, a native Visual Studio for Mac running on M1, could we run it on an iPad, for example?
I think there was a question up above.
It's an interesting, that'd be a fun idea to take a look at. I'm not too sure how easy that makes that kind of transition. I know it could be a fun experiment to play with. I think it's Apple's Catalyst APIs or the set that's supposed to enable stuff like that, but I haven't looked at it, so I don't know for sure on that.
Gotcha.
But it's not something we've explored yet.
Yep. Thrashing Code is giving a +1 to CodeLens, and also asks, will ReSharper ever be usable in VS for Mac?
Yeah, I don't know that one. That would be an interesting request to send on over to the ReSharper folks around adding support for it. I know a lot of functionality we've got, like light bulb stuff we've looked at with code analysis. Code cleanups, one area I might be exploring. There's some things that do similar actions. So there's some stuff in VS for Mac that you might be used to using in ReSharper that would just work already in VS for Mac. So you could take a look first to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And one more question before we close it out.
Oh, questions.
Yep. F# support is very good. Do you have any plans for, I guess, F# features? If not a demo, would love to see.
Yeah, F#5 is in our, I think, 8.10 previews. So the team's been working to get, they got the F# editor over to that shared code editor from Visual Studio, which gives us the native macOS UI and all sorts of wins for the editor. Now actual F#5 support, Jason, our team, is somebody that's been working on that. So he shared out a build on Twitter a little while ago for folks to start trying it out. And we're working to get that into, I want to say it's the 8.10 release.
All right, sweet. So I think that's all the time that we have for now. We finished with like less than a minute to spare. Awesome job, y'all. Thank you to the VS for Mac team for coming on and showing off why VS for Mac is so cool. And if you're a Mac user or have a MacBook and you like to code, you should definitely go check it out. Go try out VS for Mac, share your feedback. Clearly, we listen to that feedback because we have surveys that go out with what features you want to see next. So yeah, if anyone has any other final comments or requests or shout outs they'd like to make, speak now or forever hold your peace.
That's it for me. I guess the one other thing is, of course, always there's a whole team of people building all this stuff. We get to show off all their awesome work, but thanks to the whole team, and it's great to work across teams and be able to show off things that, for instance, the Xamarin team builds something and it just lights up for us, or Roslyn, etc. So it's cool to show off everyone's work.
Yeah. And if you have any other additional questions that maybe we didn't get to, we all have our Twitter handles posted here. So feel free to reach out to any of us and we'll try to help you out. So, yeah, until next time, happy coding, y'all.
Thanks for having us. Take care.